In today's video, I'm going to be showing you some amazing things that I just found at eWaste. This includes a pile of floppy drives, a really cool joystick, an Apple II that's loaded with goodies, and some really special expansion cards. It's coming up right now on the Retro Hack Shack After Hours. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Retro Hack Shack After Hours with me, your host, Aaron Newcomb. And thanks for joining me. Thanks to all my patrons and subscribers and supporters. All you guys are great. Today is another episode of eWaste Wednesday. That's when I go to eWaste, the day that I go to eWaste, regardless of the day that you're watching this video. And I scope out everything that I can find and bring back, and today is an eWaste Wednesday haul video. So I'm going to be showing you all the stuff that I found at eWaste over the past couple of weeks. We'll go through, take a look, and I could really use your help if you have any information on how to get this stuff working, or what kind of card it is, or what kind of computer that is, or any of that kind of stuff as we go through this. I'd really appreciate you putting it in the comments below. I really do read all of your comments, and I appreciate all of your kind and helpful tips and suggestions. So first up today, maybe not the most exciting, but it is kind of cool for me. It's a pile of 3.5-inch floppy disks. That's right. I found all of these at eWaste recently. In fact, down here, I just noticed this is not a floppy disk. This is a internal zip drive. So we've got a bunch of floppies and a zip drive. Now, I'm not going to make you sit through me testing all of these, but I will go ahead and test them now, kind of show you my procedure. And all the ones that I find that are working, I put on my eBay page. That's right, I do have an eBay store, and the ones that I don't need or want to keep, I want to make sure are available for the community. So I offer them on eBay for a very reasonable price, and that money goes back into supporting the channel. So first up, I can see that this one was actually one of mine. I tested this already and brought it back to eWaste, and then the guys at eWaste pulled it aside and set it out for me because they know I like to collect and test these 3.5-inch floppy drives, and it has an X on it, and I can tell that's my X that I put there. So this one is a bad drive. It did not test well at all. It wasn't worth repairing. Something was majorly wrong with it. I think, though, what I just realized I might do, because I see some of these drives that don't have faceplates, for example, I think I'm going to start saving the faceplates and the buttons off the bad drives. Maybe I can put those together with a drive that's missing the faceplate and button, like this Mitsumi drive here. And if this one actually works, then I can get this up and running and going again, and I'll have extra stuff that I can put here. Because a lot of times what they'll do with these is they'll just toss them literally across the room into a big cardboard box. But a lot of times when they do that, the face places will come right off, of course, and this one's even missing the door, so I don't know what, if anything, this thing will do. But the other problem is this is an NEC drive, this is a Mitsumi drive, so the faceplates aren't going to match. Those are pretty much by manufacturer. So before I break away and test all of these off camera, I just wanted to point out this is my test rig. This is a VLB bus motherboard. I keep one of these around as a test rig to test VLB boards when I come across them, and I have found, I don't know, half a dozen or so. And so this is really helpful to have, but it is reliable. I'm going to go test all these. I'll come back and let you know how we made out. All right, well, that was a good day of floppy testing. I got through that first batch of floppies and they were all good, so I went out to my car and found some other ones that had slid around on the back seat, and so I found quite a bit more. All in all, I have 12 working floppy drives, 3.5-inch floppy drives, so that's good. And I only had 2 that were bad. This one in particular, the head mechanism was stuck, and when I was able to free it, I thought I might be able to get it to work, but then the stepper motor was bad, so there wasn't really much I could do. It would just kind of flip-flop a little bit and not do a whole lot. And so that one's going back to eWaste, but the other ones are working, and they'll be on my eBay page soon. Now it's time to take a look at this zip drive. This is an NEC version, not an iOmega version. And I've had pretty good luck with these things. They mostly work, but you do have to use the right driver for the right type of drive. I believe it's the 5.4 version of the zip driver that will work with the IDE internal version of the zip drive here. So let's just go ahead and give that a try. And to test this out, just run the guest program. I do have a disk in there. Hopefully it will come back and just say, your drive letter is probably D in this case. Yep, came back, said it's D. I can hear it kind of spinning over there. So let's see if it is working. Yep, and this particular disk has some corrupt data on it. I noticed this last time I was testing out some drives on this thing, but we should be able to get into Doom here. And I don't have any sound hooked up, but let's just go ahead and run Doom just to put the drive through its paces, make sure it's reading a bunch of information off the disk. And I'm glad I take it to this level because it is stuck. I can hear the drive is spinning. It's trying to read, but it's stuck on this step, which usually takes the longest. Oh, there it goes. It's actually going. But it was stuck there. So maybe there's some dust in there or something that we need to spray out or clean. But now it's actually going and it looks like it's going to work. And there we go. Could do a new game. Yep. Go for it. Go for it. I'm not going to hear anything, but let's see. WASD maybe. Yeah, there it goes. So yeah, Doom is working. It read that game and was able to load it off of the zip disk. So yeah, the zip disk is working too. So really good track record today. And all of these things, except for the broken ones, will be showing up on my eBay store. All right, so before I put this setup away, I thought I would try something else that I found at eWaste, and that is this joystick. And it's quite curious for a number of reasons. It's got two buttons down here. It looks like it has some trimmer or centering capability on the joystick over here. It's got another slider switch over here on the side, which says for off or turbo fire. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to turn that off for now. And the other curious thing is it's got two connectors. And so I'm guessing this one is obviously a PC joystick connector, and I'm guessing this one is for Apple. So this could be a, cheap joystick that was manufactured in the 80s, certainly after 1981, because that's when the IBM PC came out. And manufacturers were looking to make products that worked with multiple systems, and this would be one of those. It also has a $4.99 tag, so even though I found this at eWaste, it was somewhere else before this, and it looks like it was at Savers. Now, Savers, I don't know if you have these in your area. I had never heard of them before I came out to California, but in the Bay Area, there are thrift stores that are called Savers, and they're basically like, I don't know if they have any non-profit connection. I don't think they do. I think they're a for-profit entity, but could be wrong. Anyway, they offer basically just like a Goodwill or some other thrift store where they take stuff in and resell it. So yeah, somebody found this at Savers. I'm going to see if I can get this thing off without leaving behind too much residue. There we go. And the logo on here says Bondwell right there. It's very hard for me to see, but maybe you can see that it says Bondwell. If I turn this thing over, it's got some nice features actually. It is light as you know what. I mean, this thing doesn't have a whole lot going on inside, but it's got some suction cups so that you could suction cup this thing onto a table for easier use so it didn't slide all over the place. It's got some A, B switches, and it's also got another switch down here, which one side says IBM PC and the other side says Apple. So that confirms what we were thinking, that this is a dual computer joystick. So I've got it set up, I think, for IBM PC, and I thought we could go ahead and plug this thing in and run a quick game, see if it even detects the joystick or the joystick works at all. I'm not exactly sure what position this is supposed to be in. The cord comes out the side, so I don't know if it's supposed to go like this maybe, or like this. The Bondwell lettering would say that it goes like this, but then what do? Like, you play with one hand and then use these buttons with the other? I don't know. So let's just go ahead. I'm going to try to center this up as much as I can. And let's go ahead and plug it in and see if this joystick works. All right, so I think Wolfenstein, yes, Castle Wolfenstein 3D does support joysticks, and it detected the joystick immediately when I powered it up. So that's a good sign. So I'm just going to go down to control. It says joystick enabled. There we go. And we'll hit new game and see what happens. All right, so like I said, I don't have a sound card. Oh, okay, so this is back. So this actually goes this way. And now I can turn, I can go forward. Okay, I can fire, but I can't open the door. So I have to use, oh, there we go. So yeah, I mean, this is working. I have never played joystick before with this game. I always use the keyboard. Let's see, open the door, see if I can shoot one other person. I mean, it's not bad. I'd much prefer a mouse, but it is working. Let's see if I can get this guy. Oh yeah, he's dead. He's dead, man. Oh yeah, let's get this guy. Oh, someone else is, oh, I didn't know that guy was there. Classic trap, the guy behind in the little secret passageway. Anyway, this joystick is 100% completely working, at least with PC. I can try it with Apple some other time, but yeah, not a bad find for this little joystick. Pretty happy with that. Since this joystick can also work on an Apple II, I think we ought to go ahead and break out one of those. And yes, I found this Apple II at e-waste as well. And the one thing that really kind of drew me to this was these half-height floppy drives. Not sure I've seen anything like these on an Apple II. Usually they're the full-height floppy drives, so we'll have to take a little bit of a closer look at these and see what brand they are, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, this is an Apple IIe. Of course, that's what you do whenever you walk up to a computer like this, right? Is you test out the keys. I'm sure it drove lots of people in the stores nuts when kids would come up and always do that. But anyway, yeah, so we've got the Apple IIe, not the Platinum version that has the extended number pad over here on the side, but just, I don't know, standard, so to speak, Apple IIe. I think there was a couple revisions of these that came out. This one has a little enhanced label here around the power button that should come on when we turn this thing on. And I do definitely want to check and see if this has a reefa cap or the exploding types of caps, because every time I turn one of these on, it seems the only thing that's wrong with it is the reefa cap, and that always goes off and stinks up the heck shack here. So I do want to check that out as well, but let's just go ahead and take a quick look and see what we've got here. And here's really the star of the show. I mean, not too tremendously spectacular or anything, but I've just never seen half-height drives on an Apple IIe. I know that there was the dual drive system, the one that went across the whole thing like here and would sit on top of the case. That came later. The early ones, of course, like I said, were the full-height drives, but I've just never seen any quite like this. And we can see on the back of this one, it's basically just in a metal enclosure. It's just a half-height drive in a metal enclosure. There's probably some sort of adapter back here to adapt the mechanism to an Apple II interface. But it says here H&M Disk Drive Services Incorporated, and it's got a 714 area code number on it. Not really sure what that is. Also has a model number, which maybe you can see that. I think it's 549-A25, if my eyes are working correctly, and a serial number. So yeah, I kind of want to take one of these apart and see what kind of mechanism they're using on the inside. They feel really good and, you know, not really used that much. I mean, the latch springs back nicely. I mean, yeah, we'll see if they work, but I really kind of like these. They take up a lot less space. So taking off the top and taking a look inside, there's no real surprises here. It's pretty much a standard Apple IIe, but it does have a number of cards, and I've taken those out. So let's take a quick look at the cards that were in here. The first one is just a standard disk controller. So I was wondering if those half-height drives back there were using some sort of special controller, but no, they're just using a standard Apple II disk controller. The next card, going from right to left, I guess, was this Apricorn Super Serial Imager card. And it looks quite a bit like a Super Serial, an Apple Super Serial card. It's got a modem connection down here, which I'm guessing is just RS-232 through this female connector here. And yeah, apparently this has also some extra ability to be able to interface with Apple printers like the image writer, and it has a number of dip switches, and it even has some jumpers over here. I don't think I've ever seen one of these before, but I'm sure they were quite common. I think Apricorn was a fairly common manufacturer of cards for the Apple II, so probably these were around quite a bit, but I don't have one of these, so it's kind of neat to see this. And also, it's got this nice, neat ribbon cable, which I must say is really nice to have compared to the Super Serial card, which can kind of have a mess of wires over here. Speaking of a mess of wires, there was also this cable attached to the next card, and you can see back here, if the focus will work, it's just connected to this little IDC connector with a bunch of wires coming out of it. And that was connected to this. It's a Grappler Plus card. So this is definitely for the printer. It's got a Centronics cable on the other end of the cable here. And yeah, this would have been for printing from the Apple II. And the last card that's in here in the RAM expansion slot in the 2E is a 64K RAM expansion card, but this is also a 2E 80 column card. Now, I thought the 2E had 80 column support built in, but I must be misremembering and not remembering this correctly, because this clearly says the 2E 80 column card. So maybe it was the Platinum that had 80 column support built in. I don't remember. I'm not really an Apple guy. I just have learned stuff along the way. I never used them when I was a kid. But anyway, yeah, this would add another 64K of memory in the 80 column support. So I think this brings the total amount of memory in this system to 128K. As I mentioned before I power this up, I do want to get all of the case taken off and the power supply removed and opened up and check for reefa caps, because those always blow. But you've probably seen that before on my channel or on other channels, so I'm not going to bore you with that. We'll just do a jump cut here and I'll see you when that is done. And by the way, I did go ahead and take apart one of these drives as well, one of these floppy drives. And I thought it would be, maybe like a third-party company putting these together, that from H&M, and just kind of slapping their own name on it. But no, when I turned it around and looked at the back here, it actually has branded here H&M. So I don't know, this seems to be legit here. I don't think this is somebody else's drive. Yeah, I just peeled off the label a little bit, and they're not covering up like a TIAC drive or something. So maybe they were actually a drive manufacturer. Here we got the model number again for 548A. And up on this side, it says high tech, and it has the assembly number and the revision. And it's a solid disk drive. I mean, it's not chintzy at all. It feels pretty good. It's got a direct drive motor here on the back. And yeah, look how shiny that's almost a mirror finish back here on the stepper motor. So yeah, it looks pretty good, I must say. If you know anything about H&M, or if you had H&M drives growing up and, maybe your friends made fun of you or something because they weren't Apple, I don't know, let me know. This looks pretty good. We'll test it in a little bit if this thing is actually running. Well, I said I was going to do a jump cut to when this was done, and I'm not going to bore you with this, but yeah, there is, unfortunately, I believe the reefa cap is built into the plug. This is a Schaffner FU. FU for FU reefa caps. We're just going to put them inside this can. And if they blow, and fill your garage with smoke, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, it won't really harm the computer, or it shouldn't harm the computer if this reefa cap inside this thing does blow. I believe there's one in there. There's also a couple of other red caps down there. I think those might be the Y class, but they're definitely not the reefas. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and try this anyway the way it is, and hopefully it's okay. Maybe I'll plug it in first, see what the voltages are. But I looked at the rest of it, and there's no cap leakage anywhere in this thing that I can see. It looks like it's in great shape otherwise. I'm just a little worried that when I plug this thing in, the magic smoke's going to come out. And it's got a simple diagram on here of the circuit that's inside here. It would be pretty easy to reproduce. Not even sure you really need it. You might just be able to get away with a jack, a power jack, and a filter cap, and then across the mains here, and then go right into the power supply. I'm not sure, but in any case, there's nothing I can do about it. I think if there is a reefa, there's no way I can get to it easily. All right, here we go. This thing's open and exposed mains. Don't do this if you don't know what you're doing. But if the reefa is in there, it will energize as soon as I plug this in, even though I have the switch off. But I'm going to go ahead and plug this in, and then I will turn the power switch on. Not sure if I'll get any mains voltage or if this thing will start up without a load on it, but I just want to see if that reefa is going to blow in my face here. Hopefully not. Okay, power is applied. Go ahead and turn this on. Okay, I'm getting the ticking sound, meaning that it's not able to start because it doesn't have a load on it. That's perfectly normal. No smoke yet. So yeah, I'll put it back together and we'll see if the computer works. I kind of slept on this overnight and thought, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and remove that filter package thing, the Schaffner FU. I've got a reefa inside perhaps thing. So I just went ahead and replaced it with a normal IEC C14 plug here. I have a ton of these laying around, and so that was the easiest thing to do. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. You know, you're obviously sacrificing some of the filtering that was necessary back in the day, but in modern times, I think this is going to be just fine. All right, the power supply's back in. I didn't put the case on yet in case we need to do some other work on the motherboard. That'll make it easier, but I think we're ready for our first test. I've got the RGB to HDMI device hooked up. In fact, I just hit some buttons accidentally. This is the device I sell on my website. I'm sure most of you know, and most of you have ordered, so thank you for doing that and supporting me. But yeah, let's go ahead. I've got this set up for Apple II, and it's set for Apple II 50 Hertz. I think I need to change that actually to Apple II 60 Hertz, right? That shouldn't be 50 Hertz. Okay, now it's set for Apple II 60 Hertz. We're going to go ahead and get out of the menu, and we're ready to turn it on. Fingers crossed. Here we go. Oh, yeah, perfect. Perfect. Look how good that looks too, man. Yeah, it came right up. No problem. Power supply seems to be working. System seems to be working. And yeah, we've got a working system. So far, all the trouble has been for nothing, but I guess we've future-proofed the power supply in a little bit, and this thing's working. So let me put the case back on. I should probably try the keyboard out as well since we're here. Let's just see if the keys are working. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Control reset. Yep, that works. The caps locks are on. We've got uppercase characters and numbers. Yeah. Keyboard is working fine. This whole thing was just working perfectly probably and was dropped off at e-waste. But now let's do a quick check on those disk drives. After inserting the disk controller card and hooking up the drives, I went ahead and turned on the machine to find that one of the drives was indeed lighting up and the Apple IIe was trying to boot from it. So I got out one of my cleaning disks and went ahead and cleaned this drive so we could test it out. And of course, we wanted to test out this joystick, which had an Apple mode. So I went ahead and made an adapter that would plug into the joystick socket on the inside of the Apple IIe and come out of the slot through the back of the case and plug into a 9-pin port for this particular joystick. Now, wouldn't it be great if there was a way to make a PCB for this particular modification I'm doing here? And indeed there is, thanks to today's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay offers high-quality, low-cost prototype PCBs and a whole lot more. As you already know, they sponsor a lot of smaller channels here on YouTube, so give them a try for your next PCB order, and I thank them for their support of the Retro Hack Shack. So I decided to try out Choplifter for the Apple IIe, and as soon as I put the disk in the drive, sure enough, it started reading, and here's the menu. I don't think all these games are actually on this disk, but we'll go ahead and load Choplifter here and see if it'll work. And a few seconds later, sure enough, something's happening, and yes, there's Choplifter. So we can go ahead and try out this joystick. Unfortunately, even though it seemed like the button would start the game, I couldn't get either of the axes to work. It wouldn't go up, it wouldn't go down, of course it wouldn't go left or right while it was still sitting on the chopper pad. So no matter what I did, even though the button was working, I couldn't get the chopper to move. Another weird thing was when I tried to do a control reset on the machine, it looked like it was going into diagnostic mode, which was really strange, and I didn't understand why. I thought it might have something to do with the joystick also not working. Maybe some of those pins were hooked up in a way that were causing this to go into diagnostic mode. I don't know, but this was really weird. Okay, so I think I figured out why the joystick wasn't working, and I think it was user error. So I don't know if you're like me, but if you learn things at a young age and you learn them incorrectly, they come back to haunt you. Like maybe certain words, or the way you pronounce certain words, you pronounced it wrong when you were in second or third grade and you just always mistakenly pronounce it like that, and then people look at you funny like, why do you pronounce that word that way? I learned incorrectly how to count pins on chips. All right, so here's a bad chip for demonstration purposes. So normally the way ICs are numbered, you start with pin 1 up here and go down. Let's say this has 8 pins. I can't really count how many it is, but 8, And then you go across, you go around the horn here, 9 and go all the way back up to 16. So pin 1 is here and pin 16 is here on this side. Well, as a kid, I got this wrong and I thought it was 1 through 8 and then 9 through 16, which didn't matter too much back then because I wasn't messing around with making adapters and measuring certain pins with the multimeter or anything like that. But anyway, sometimes that old habit comes back to haunt me. And that's what happened here. I was hooking up something to pin 10 and I went, okay, well, 1 through 8, 9, 10. And I hooked the connection up there when of course it should have been connected down here. So anyway, that's one of the things I got wrong. The other thing I noticed was that I forgot to hook up a ground pin. So that's not going to work without a ground pin either, because I think that's how the X and Y axis is. They need a ground reference to be able to sense which direction you're going with the yoke. So anyway, I fixed those two things. And so let's go ahead and load up Choplifter and see what happens. All right, here we go. First sortie. Let's see if this works. Yes, it does. All right. So up and down, left and right. Yeah, they all work. So this joystick is indeed working. How do I turn this thing around? Oh, there we go. I forgot how. Don't know if I've ever played this, or if I have, I've forgotten. Do I have to pick these guys up? Oh, yeah. Come on, baby. Let's go, baby. Rambo to the rescue. All right, let's take these guys. We have to take them back, I assume. So let's go back to the start here and whoops, put them down. There we go. We rescued them. So yeah, joystick totally working. Not the joystick's fault. It was completely user error. All right, well, with that Apple II out of the way and seemingly working just fine, I thought I would turn my attention to some of the random cards that I find at e-waste. So these are some ones that I found recently, and these were all found by digging through basically a bin that was ready to be put in the dumpster. They put these in a big bin, and then when I go on Wednesday, I can pick through and find some. Here's a big bunch of basically the same board that I found up there. Those look really interesting. And yeah, so let's just go through these one at a time and we'll see what I found. The first thing I found, well, maybe not that interesting, and it's certainly easy to see what it is. It's a quick phase precision stepper motor controller. So I assume that you would hook up your stepper motor, maybe a CNC machine or something like that through the ports on this particular card, and then you could control it from your IBM PC. So even as far back as the 8-bit IS-8 days, they were hooking up these cards and using them to control professional machinery in a shop or something like that. Very cool. And on the back of the card, we can see that this was manufactured sometime between 93 and 96. So, and it was done by a company called Micronetics Corporation in Kennesaw, Georgia. Sorry, it's hard to read these things, but yeah, that's where the card was manufactured. This next board is really kind of weird and interesting. It says on this board it's an Everex Systems EV980. And at first I thought it was maybe just a modem card because it's got 4-pin jacks on the end of it, like you would hook up to a modem. And they even say wall and phone on it. But then it's got this chip here, which is a Motorola 68000. That's kind of weird. And then it's got a speaker over here. It's got 2 ROMs for high and low. I mean, it almost looks like this is some sort of a system card. And perhaps this was meant to be used in a backplane type system where this was both the modem and the processor card. And then there was other cards that were supposed to go with it. I have no idea. So if you know what this board is or have any idea, please let me know in the comments below. Next up, we have this BocaRam AT Plus memory card. This is a 16-bit ISA card, and it has 8 rows of chips, but I believe this is actually 4 banks. Banks 0, 1, 2, and 3. 16 chips each, and each bank of memory would hold 2 megabytes of RAM for a total of 8 megabytes. So this one card could have 8 megabytes of additional RAM for your system on it. Not only that, if you configured the jumpers correctly, I believe you could have up to 4 of these cards in your computer, which gave you all the way up to 64 megabytes of RAM in your AT class system. So this was quite a bit of RAM indeed, and would certainly add a lot to your system. Very cool card to have. Next up, we have this card, and again, it was a little bit confusing at first what this card actually was. I think I figured it out, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. I'm noticing that this particular card has a bunch of RAM here in the back, which kind of makes it look like some sort of a EGA card. It would have RAM, it would have this expansion header here, and then the chips I noticed also say Paradise on them. But the weird thing is the interface here on the back of the card is like a 25-pin port and some dip switches, and I don't think I've ever seen that type of interface on a video card before. So the dip switches make sense for EGA, but I'm not sure if this was made for a very particular, perhaps rare monitor that would plug into this. I really don't know. So if you have any idea what this card was used for, or even how I can test it out or documentation, please let me know, and I'll give this maybe a shot on another episode. Next, we have another interesting card, one that I've certainly have never seen before. This was made by a company called Kovox, and it's the Kovox Soundmaster 2. So this is an early sound card. I think the date on it is something like 1991 or something like that. And yeah, it's a card that I've never seen. It's a interesting one. It does have a OPL2 chip on it for FM synthesis, and it's got a 8-bit mono DAC for sound and speech. It does have the connector on the back for either joystick or MIDI. And yeah, there just isn't much really that was made for it. Unfortunately, no games were made to directly support it. And fortunately, it did have a little program that you could run in DOS that would cause it to be Sound Blaster compatible. So as long as you ran that little program first and then ran your game, you could run any game that supported the Sound Blaster. So yeah, Kovox had some other speech cards and things like that, and I think this was one of the last cards that they manufactured, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of times when I'm looking for cards in these bins, I find some pretty obscure cards that were used for controlling industrial equipment and things, but they often have interesting chips on it. Like this one has a Motorola 6800 chip that could be useful for repairing other computers and things. And it also has some ROMs that I could reuse, some EEPROMs up here that I could reuse. Otherwise, a kind of an unremarkable kind of card by a company called Kinetics. It's the KFPM-1, but yeah, I'll definitely salvage those chips. Now, these cards are kind of interesting. They're not independent cards in and of themselves, but they do have 5 16-bit ISA slots, and they also have power connectors for all the power rails. So I think the purpose of this card was just to power individually, or power the cards that were plugged into it with the appropriate 5 volt, 12 volt, -5, +5 rails, so that the cards could run on their own. And that feeds into this other big pile of cards in the back here that I want to talk about next. So this big stack of cards in the backs, they're all the same, and they're all made by a company called White Data Systems down in San Diego. And this particular company, I did a little bit of research. It looked like they made a lot of cards or parts, components, consulted with military corporations. I think they were in on some NASA deals, maybe. I don't know. I found a bunch of really old documents that talked about White Data Systems down in San Diego. And this card doesn't have any ports on the back, but it does have some interesting chips that tell us what's going on. The first thing I saw were these ports here. These are 32-pin ports. So I thought, well, maybe this is some sort of a floppy controller, because you wouldn't necessarily need any ports on the back of the card for this. These could be just a couple of floppy controllers on this board. But then I noticed these 2 chips here, and these are UART chips. And these smaller chips alongside them here are optocoupler chips, which would be used so that if you had a signal coming in, it would not be electrically connected to the rest of the board. You could isolate the data signals coming in from the other electrically sensitive components. And so what I think is going on here are these are just basically data I/O lines that are going out to some equipment or something. Maybe they're just serial lines, a read and a write pin or something like that. And there's probably 64 of them or something in that nature. I'm sure there's some ground pins on those headers and things like that. So maybe it's not quite 64. Maybe it's 60 I/O pins here. So this looks to be some sort of a data processing board. Indeed, if we look a little bit over to the right here, we can see there's a Zilog Z80, and not just any Z80. This is a special Zilog Z80 chip that has built-in RAM and ROM, and on the ROM there is BASIC running. So this is kind of like a whole system on a chip here, pretty much everything that you need to be able to get up and running and run a program. So very interesting version of the Zilog Z80. We move over a little bit further here though, we see that there is a ROM chip probably holding whatever program is going to run to get this thing up and running. And then we have some SRAM over here, perhaps some memory, additional memory, or maybe to hold store settings or load the program into that's going to run. And so this thing basically has all the components of a whole computer on a board. This thing's a little bit like the Raspberry Pi of its day, and it would be really interesting to try to get this thing up and running. And since I found this in the same basic location as this distribution board for power, I wouldn't be surprised if these actually went together. I wonder if someone was running a bunch of these in parallel here, just apply the power to the board and get 4 or 5 of these boards up and running at the same time. And wow, you really have a tiny little cluster of computers here that could process a whole lot of data. So if you want me to try to get one of these things running and see if we can figure out and get some data off it, maybe some serial logs or something like that, let me know in the comments below. So by now you're probably wondering how much I paid for all these things. Well, the Apple II was the most expensive of the bunch. That was $30, and then the cards were another $10, and the floppy drives I think were another $10 after that. And so for all of the things that you saw me test out here today, the grand total was $50. So not a bad haul from eWaste, not a bad haul at all. Thanks for joining me here on eWaste Wednesday. I really hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, I'll put another video up here in the corner for you to watch next. And yeah, thanks to everybody for supporting the channel. Thanks to my patrons, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
End of line.